Public relations of the company Solar Group, and with me today in the studio is Fyodor Konstantinov.
Greetings to everyone.
Today we have a webinar where we will introduce you to the project Next Generation Airship. This is a new investment project of the company Solar Group, so if you are interested in supporting innovations and want to earn from it, then this information will be for you. We will also answer all your questions. You can write your questions right now, and we will address them at the end of the webinar. The sooner you write, the sooner we will answer your question. Also, don't forget about your activity. We finance our projects through collective investments, so everything depends on you. The more actively you like, share, and of course send the link to this broadcast or its recording to your friends, the faster we will launch the first airship. A little about us. The company Solar Group is a new generation financial company because we finance our projects, as I mentioned, through collective investments. Currently, we have one project, the company Sovolmash, which is almost completed. We are now at the 19th funding stage out of 20 possible, and just recently, 3 months ago, we launched a new investment project on airships, and this is essentially what you are here for in this webinar today. We pre-launched, that's correct, yes, because we are currently only at the pre-launch stage, and the first funding stage will be very soon. By the way, right now the investment conditions are the best, and we will talk about this today as well. To date, we already have over 500,000 participants registered in our personal account. More than 72,000 people are investing with us, and these are people from more than 190 countries, totaling almost $100 million. This is the amount that has already been attracted to our project. Therefore, we have something to be proud of, and we are confident that our second project will be no less successful than the first. Now let's talk about it. We thought for a long time about what this project would be. We were often asked when it would be launched, what the theme would be, and this theme is airships. And Fyodor Konstantinov, as a person who was searching for these projects together with Sergei Semyonov, who, let's say, has encountered a huge number of various engineers' ideas and business projects, we still decided to focus specifically on airships. So the first question, Fyodor, tell us, why airships? Why is this the most interesting thing we have managed to find over these years?
Well, we can start with the very mission of Solar Group. What ideology was laid out? Maybe you can tell us when you started this company.
Yes, when we started, we said that our task is, so to speak, to save the Soviet legacy, because Russia, previously the Soviet Union, is a country with the largest number of engineers in the world, where the strongest engineering school exists, and there is a clear understanding. You know yourself, as you are aware, that there are a significantly large number of brilliant people with their ideas, and in order to successfully realize these innovative ideas, they often simply and unfortunately lack the necessary financial resources, and in general, we have communicated with these brilliant people, right?
Yes, that's right. And so it happened that the Soviet Union collapsed. Russia became the successor, and along with the Union, the infrastructure that allowed engineers to realize themselves and undertake large projects also collapsed. We all know this very well. It's no secret. A huge, indeed catastrophic number of research centers have been closed, enterprises, and so on and so forth. And it is this mission that Solar Group has taken upon itself, saying, well, in fact, the mission itself was emerging, and everyone longs, in fact, to support Russian science. Everyone liked Soviet science and technology. And yes, there may not have been a tool, right? And there wasn't such, yes, the very idea of people uniting and doing everything together was actually in the air. But it was Solar Group, a young team, that managed to do this, which, with the help of IT technologies, united not only people in the post-Soviet space, but also around the world with the idea of preserving what was And in fact, a lot of different projects have probably been reworked over the last 6 years, which is a significant period of time, and the airships, which are fascinating and innovative, are most likely the very highlight of this forward-thinking ideology that people from various backgrounds and walks of life can unite, collaborate, and preserve their heritage and create something truly grand and remarkable. There were no other projects quite like this unique one. In fact, airships are truly like space and like aircraft construction. Airship construction is an incredible and complex whole industry, and this is one of the important tasks left for me by Sergey. He said that for crowd investing for this public financing, it is necessary to find such a project, such a team, with such technology, meaning it should be industry forming. I haven't seen anything else so powerful and industry forming, apart from the airship project, which is already prepared for launch. Well, I haven't encountered it, or rather there were many things. There were large projects on soil restoration, greening deserts, cleaning rivers, oil processing, medical projects, a bunch related to food, industry, waste recycling. Everything was good, everything was eco-friendly, and so on. But it is precisely the idea of preserving Soviet heritage that stands out. Considering that the Soviet Union at one time had the most extensive airship fleet in the Russian Empire, historically speaking. Yes, so this heritage can be traced back even further, and in general, the passion of the Russian Soviet person for aviation is very, great. We were considered one of the most aviation-developed countries. Even children engaged in model aviation. General aviation, light aviation, large aviation, space, ekranoplans, everything, and no one was building. There were also Soviet airships. All of this existed. So yes, ideologically it fits. There is a fully prepared team of engineers for the project, and there is a demand from the population. Yes, the fact that Solar relies on crowdfunding on the general public, and the general public often asks, where have the airships gone? Why are they not there? Let's bring airships back to the sky. Let's do it.
Well, and such large-scale projects are capable of providing returns, right, to their investors.
Exactly, but from the perspective of this specific airship project, I believe that hardly any other projects will be able to provide such returns, except for airships.
Well, yes, even if we take the company Zeppelin, which earns more than 100 million euros a year while having a few airships in its fleet and sometimes selling airships to America and maybe some other countries.
Once 5 yearly?
Yes, even they manage to make such big money with such a small fleet, right? In fact, yes, I didn't understand how you calculated 100 million euros. This information is available on the internet, and there is information from 2 years, somewhere it was, in general 2 figures, both were 100, more than 100 for different years, somewhere it can be found.
There are 2 small tourist airships that take tourists on routes in the city of Friedrichshafen. There is a 1 hour and a 1.5 hour flight for about 500 euros per person, with 14 people per trip, and in the end, the company makes 100 million euros in profit per year.
If we talk about the airships themselves, what indeed distinguishes them from other flying vehicles? What advantages do they have over airplanes and helicopters, and what tasks can they solve more effectively?
Yes, everyone understands that it is the lift force created by helium. An airship filled with lifting gas stays in the air without consuming fuel or electricity. Yes, a helicopter needs to spin its blades and burn fuel to hover. An airplane needs propulsive speed to fly again. The engines work, creating the speed of the airship. If it is balanced, it means it stays at a certain altitude, requiring minimal energy just for stabilization. Thus, it is different. It can stay in the air relatively for free. And for a long time, right? Well, yes. This is its unique distinguishing feature from any aerial vehicle, as it can stay in the air for a day, 2, 3, 4, or even a month, potentially a year without landing. but a year is already for high-altitude stratospheric airships.
Well, airships are typically assessed by their lifting capacity or how many cubic meters they can hold. Airship operators measure airships in cubic meters. Usually, as we say, it can lift a certain number of kilograms or tons. If we start talking about small devices to the largest ones, we can discuss where they can be applied and, again, what advantages they have. Cargo can be transported by both airplane and helicopter.
Air transport by airplane has stabilized in modern logistics. It is expensive and fast. Helicopters are even more expensive and faster, but the reach is completely different. However, an airship can take this airplane and transport it. An airplane cannot be transported, right? An airplane needs infrastructure, airfields, runways, and so on. An airship does not need infrastructure. It can pick up cargo directly from the manufacturer, transport it, and carry the cargo in a straight line directly to a warehouse, conditionally to any empty area. It can unload everything. Well, the volume of the airship, if it is a very large airship, has its own stories. It will only need a mast to which it can secure itself and also lower the cargo on ropes, conditionally. That is, there should be a small tall mast and a platform at the same warehouse where this cargo can be moved. An airplane cannot do that. A helicopter can, but its reach is too small. Helicopters do not fly far. Airships can fly very far.
So it turns out it is clear it is simply cheaper to perform the same functions, at least
according to all theoretical calculations and also in past practical applications. Airships significantly outperform both airplanes and helicopters in various aspects of fuel efficiency. And yes, with a certain size of the airship, transporting 1 ton for 1 kilometer is cheaper than by helicopter, cheaper than by airplane, and cheaper than by truck, even a car truck, starting from a certain size. And these airships, which can lift and carry 200 tons, are comparable to maritime transport, which is the cheapest on the planet.
And now, the topic of drones for a variety of tasks is very popular.
Yes, you mentioned from small to large.
Yes, they can also perform the functions of drones, essentially.
They are already performing such functions. In Africa, I don't remember the exact country, small airships have been built in collaboration with the French. They can carry about 8 kilograms, transporting medications from the district center to the village. The project is quite new, maybe a year old or a bit more. There is a commercial order from a pharmaceutical company. The company bought a drone, or rather the services, and is using it. Whether they will expand it or not, but an 8-kilogram drone cannot reach here while an airship can.
Yes, and if I'm not mistaken, drones have a flight time of 15 to 30 minutes.
Well, look, this is a drone of the quadcopter type, and an airplane type drone can reach here.
Ah, well, an airplane, yes. If we talk about transporting something over a very short distance, then there are probably no competitors to airships here, especially when compared to cargo or surveillance drones.
Look, there are generally different dimensions. Each dimension has its own effective range at which it can operate. There is a dimension where it can fly even over short distances, which is conditionally 10 tons. Everything up to 10 tons is considered short distances. Yes, everything above that is medium, and larger is long distance, of course. And the airship is really large, which can carry oversized cargo, which no one can move. It can handle any distances. Even transferring from one factory to another, it will be easier to call an airship.
It turns out that airships have a relatively wide range of applications. In fact, in principle, they can be used for almost anything like a car. There are passenger cars and there are trucks of various purposes, but both are still cars. If we talk about where other companies are currently heading, how are they trying to commercialize the airship industry and their devices?
Here we need to talk not even about business enterprises, but about lighter-than-air vehicles in general and why they are not present in the world as a mode of transportation in the modern era. Many are trying, many are doing something. In Africa, they are launching a small unmanned aerial vehicle in the skies. The British built their Airlander and only recently found a customer willing to pay for the construction of several units for tourism, exclusive VIP tourism experience, where one ticket costs 200,000 euros, which is quite expensive. Brin is currently building his massive airship. He is constructing the largest, most innovative airship of the 21st century with a rigid hull based on a rigid design. He says it will be a rescue airship, but he is building it alone. The Chinese built the A7000, which is their little airship. It follows a similar design to the Zeppelin, accommodating just over 10 people, and is also for tourism. It flies locally, showcasing local attractions, and they ordered about 10. So, essentially, everyone is leaning either towards tourism to buy their own from one to several devices. For example, Brin intends to engage in rescue operations, but in reality, in America, yes. If you watch the news lately with the weather and various climate disasters, America is facing them more frequently, and it is really needed there. The question is whether this airship they built will break apart. But yes, I say, why do airships seem to be non-existent? Because everyone is trying to build 1, 2, or 3 devices and make them pay for themselves. Naturally, but I don't even know how to build it. It all looks like the construction of automobiles a century ago. When carriages were common, everyone rode horses, and then someone built a steam engine and is trying to sell it for a high price. Ford created that very miracle that should happen with airships. He made the car mass-produced and accessible, and airships should not be built as isolated units, but rather a whole system should be developed for design, serial production, operation, commercial use, and training of pilots and technicians. A complete system needs to be built, and then airships will appear. But those acting now aren't building systems. Their goal differs. They aim to release 1, 2, 3 devices to self-fund.
So, what is our task? To become the Ford of the airship industry? It seems so. To become Ford. Well, let's then talk about what exactly we will do. What kind of business is this at all? How do we plan to become Ford? What is the business model? How will this company make money?
Actually, yes, indeed, everything is banal and simple. A different objective is established and that goal is solved. It's just basic math. If you want to talk like to draw, let me get a flip chart.
What will be created within the company? Firstly, the company is called Aeronova, but it is still referred to as Nova, which is not a mistake. It seems you mentioned that this is just conversation.
Yes, regarding the fact that I slightly corrected Pasha, our project has not started yet. It is still in the pre-launch phase. During the pre-launch, we announced it. We had a large conference. If you are seeing this for the first time, you can watch it or not. There will soon be a new large conference where we will clarify everything. Not drastically, but changes have occurred. Yes, the project was in the pre-launch stage and still is, and a lot could have changed, has changed, and will likely continue to change. But the main idea of the project remains. This idea was actually held by airship enthusiasts before, and it still exists now. There is an unwritten law that 1 cubic meter costs $1,000 for an airship. So, 1,000 cubic meters cost $1 million, and 2,000 cubic meters cost $2 million. Well, as a customer, you come to the airship builder and say, I want an airship. They ask you, well, what do you need? You say, well, we calculated for our business. We need an airship, let's say 2,000 cubic meters, for carrying out some logistics operation. They say, well, that's $2 million for one unit. Please be so kind as to pay up. But 2,000 cubic meters is actually needed by very few people. everyone comes in with 50,000 cubic meters. Well, 1 cubic meter provides about 1 kilogram of lift, plus or minus. How much does the unit itself weigh? So a unit with 50,000 cubic meters can, more precisely, lift 50 tons of gas of that volume. But considering its own weight, it will lift about 30 or 25 tons. Yes, and if someone says they need a unit with 50,000 cubic meters, they are told it will cost $50 million, and that's it. Goodbye. Yes, all conversations end there. It's expensive. This unwritten rule has actually been around since ancient times, along with modern methods of design, serial production, market innovations, sales, repairs, and so on. We have actually seen a significant change over the past few years. This is the economic miracle of China. We have all witnessed it. It's amazing how a new German car now costs around 20 million rubles in our country. When you get into a Chinese car, it feels the same, and visually it might even be better in some aspects. In terms of modernity, it is even more modern. Its price is not 20, but 5. The same can be done with the airship, and this goal is set for the company Aeronova. It has been established. Most likely we will achieve it. What will be done within the framework of this project, specifically this crowdfunding project, over the next 3 to 5 years. As Pasha said, we certainly expect that in 3 to 5 years, or rather we do not expect, we realistically speaking understand that within this time frame we can build an MVP, a minimum viable product, in short, in the Russian context, a financially break-even business unit that will be self-sustaining through the various processes we are focusing on, namely the development, production, and operation of advanced airships. What exactly will be created from this and how will it be achieved? I will start drawing now. First of all, and most importantly of course, is the team. The team is already approximately 95% formed. In fact, the formation of the team is currently, as we speak, divided into 2 stages. The first stage is the creation of an engineering center within the project. This is a rapid and quick sprint phase, and it is 95% completed. The next stage will come a bit later, in the near future, involving the formation of a full-fledged design bureau. It will be necessary for the construction and design of larger devices than the one we have already started making, the 2,000 cubic meter device. So, I will return to the team now. Here is the engineering center, which will later turn into a full-fledged design bureau. The first step, of course, is the team. A bit about the strategy. Our colleagues in the world, the same Sergey Brin, chose a rather strange strategy. Having not built a single airship, he decided to build a 100-ton airship right away, the size of the previous largest Zeppelin. Count Zeppelin, that old airship, has not built a single one, not even a medium-sized one, let alone a small one. Because of this, his timelines are constantly shifting, the cost is constantly rising, and the cost of error is actually enormous, because he has already invested not just hundreds of millions of dollars into this project, and it does not fly, because theory differs from practice, and this always works in 99% of cases. And therefore the strategy of Aeronova is to reduce the cost of error, starting with a small device and evolving to larger ones, but at a rapid pace, of course. Because what allows this to be done at a sprint pace is the absence of that silly idea, but it's not actually silly, it's a good one. And I will explain now. In short, there is no need to try to commercialize a single device, to make it so that it covers the entire process. In the framework of creating such a large enterprise, this idea could actually ruin the enterprise itself. Naturally, each device is designed for commercial use, but to believe that a single device will cover all of this? No, that is impossible, and it is clear. And that is why we are specifically building a business model where the system will cover the process. A system of design, production, and serial sales, rather than a specific device. And right now, a device is being created in the engineering center. A scientific and technical council has been held. At the scientific and technical council, we determined that the first vehicle should appear, firstly, very quickly, and secondly, as economically as possible. It cannot be called cheap. It is not necessary to build cheaply. In fact, it is important to build quality but economically. We concluded that if we stated at the first conference that a separate hangar would be built for the first vehicle, then, facing reality, the acquisition of land and bringing it into operation involves a lot of administrative paperwork. Then there is the design and construction, and by the time all this is completed, God willing, the hangar will appear in 3 years. It is not as interesting to raise the vehicle after 3 years as it is to raise it. To raise it in a year, it must utilize the existing and available infrastructure. And this infrastructure is a standard and typical aviation hangar with a gate height of approximately 12 meters. This is one limitation that has fallen on the shoulders of the first vehicle, and the second is its various competitive technical advantages. In general, we had to choose a speed, and we chose around 120 kilometers per hour, and then everything else formed itself. Its volume, external appearance, what engines, what propellers, where they are placed, and what they do. And the vehicle was created. Let it fly in that direction, which is 2,000 cubic meters. This vehicle is currently being designed. It is being designed in such a way, in a manner, that after 3 different modifications, we will have a completely operational and fully functional, commercially viable unmanned vehicle that can perform various functions. And it will be able to perform a variety of specific functions. For instance, there are these aircraft, the Soviet-era light aviation aircraft, which is still used in Yakutia, for example. There, an An-2 flies regularly, it seems to be called that, and they are using up their last flight hours, and this useful work will still need to be done, and most likely this vehicle will be able to perform it. I will repeat, we plan for it to commence operations in approximately a year, or even a little less than a year, because our engineering center has already been operational for the first month. To create the engineering center, a company was established with specific activities, and employees were hired, an office was rented, and so on. In the near future, in general, the first month has already been operational, so in a year minus 1 month, the first vehicle will take off. It will be designed in such a way that we can test several options on it. These include combined gondolas and separate gondolas, as well as engine gondolas. These are 2 rotating propellers, or 1 main propeller plus 2 auxiliary ones. This is the type of tail or that type. In general, all of this will be incorporated into the first shell. All possibilities for creating its modifications, in order to experimentally develop, firstly, the best scheme for the vehicle itself. Secondly, why was a small vehicle of 2,000 cubic meters chosen? Firstly, yes, indeed, to avoid building a hangar and to do it expeditiously. Secondly, to test the unmanned control system that will later be applied to larger vehicles. But it happened that a decision was made recently to create a very small vehicle. And as Vadim Zubkevich said today, the first vehicle, with a volume of about 150 cubic meters, will take off in January.
Meters will it be?
Around 10.
Large, right?
10.7. This is different, Ruslan is suggesting. Here stands Ruslan, the production manager. He will eventually come into the frame and also tell how he plans to produce these vehicles in series, and slightly larger vehicles and everything else. He will also talk about where he plans to build the hangar. I returned. He says 17, but in reality it's 10. Here's today's fresh information. On this vehicle, the control system will be tested. Those airships that were built earlier, and those airships that are even being built now by colleagues from England, from China, from America, they all started designing in various fields a bit earlier, at an earlier stage than this boom of drones happened, and they did not incorporate their solutions into the systems that are now actively being developed in the industry. We have two high-class specialists in our team. One of them is Melad from Iran, and the other is Dmitry Orlov, our local from Moscow. Melad is working on unmanned systems for helicopters and drones. For helicopters, he collaborates with Iranian engineers, working remotely from Moscow. For drones, together with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the US, also remotely, they are developing a system where the drone completely disconnects from external control code, relying solely on its own brains, on its own chips. At a speed of 100, it flies through the forest at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour and weaves between the trees. This is quite a serious task. Dmitry Orlov is working on creating fully automated robotic production facilities. He has his own large team, and Orlov is actually a colleague of Ruslan, who was just off camera here, giving some hints. Yes, they are jointly working on the control system for this vehicle and said, let's build a small one. There was a question. In fact, a schedule has been created for a year for the development of this vehicle, and there is a timeline before its realization so that the control system can be tested virtually. Essentially, it takes about 10 months, while the control system can be created in a couple of months. It was decided to create a very small prototype. All control systems will be tested on it, so that the actual ready system can be installed on the main vehicle without damaging it. As a result, we have this drone with specifications. They are still indeed conditional, which is 500 kilograms for 500 kilometers. This is what it will definitely achieve. In fact, it will be able to carry more and transport it roughly the same, or carry a bit less and fly for about 1,000 kilometers. And all this will be in unmanned mode. What makes this airship modern, for example, is that it will primarily have automated control systems developed, including not only route following, which I will explain now, but also automatic exit from the hangar, followed by automatic takeoff and landing, of course, automatic route following, and automated mechanized, firstly mooring, and secondly loading and unloading. Here, most likely, 1 or 2 people may be needed, but not as many as before. Previously, a lot of personnel was required to take the airship out of the hangar, to release it, and then to catch it again. Many people were needed to moor it, load, unload, and so on. In the economic model, the use of this airship, this drone, and indeed any airship, slightly changes the proportions, but overall, the payment for pilots, technicians, ground crew, and so on accounts for almost a third. If this third is deducted due to operational costs, then economic feasibility appears even for small vehicles. Previously, when calculating the economy in the Soviet Union or in America, a lot of people involved in maintenance, flight, and so on were always included in the economic calculations. And now, unmanned technologies, of course, eliminate this cost item, and recalculating the economy, there has recently been an understanding that economic feasibility also appears for small vehicles. Previously, it was said that economic feasibility only existed for vehicles with a carrying capacity of 50-100 tons or more. In fact, even such a small, compact, and efficient vehicle can be economically efficient. And we aim to create such a vehicle to develop all these advanced and innovative autopilot systems, and other important aspects I mentioned. This will all appear within a year, with the first couple of its innovative modifications emerging: a cargo drone that can already perform some commercial tasks efficiently and effectively. The second goal is still to create a serious and significantly large vehicle. Just as we came to this conclusion together, we are committed and dedicated to achieving these goals. Right now, we are making vehicles of this family, and the further development of the second vehicle will also be formulated. The second vehicle should naturally have a larger carrying capacity, and it is quite likely to be a rigid design, because this vehicle is of a soft design, where the airship's body is soft. It relies solely on the strength of the fabric and internal pressure. This is sufficient for vehicles of this volume and carrying capacity, and even for vehicles with carrying capacity. For example, the Germans have the Zeppelin NT, which accommodates 14 people. It is also possible to make larger soft designs. Airships exist in soft and semi-rigid forms. As with the Germans, they have a soft shell, but inside there is a central rod that provides rigidity. This is semi-rigid. It can be a central rod or it can be a keel. And a rigid design, where the body consists of a structural frame. It is either covered with fabric or clad in metal. These are old technologies, modern ones. It can also be composite. The transition to a rigid design is quite likely for the second airship, but it is not mandatory. It could be a semi-rigid design. Yes, but its carrying capacity will be around 10 tons. So if it goes for 10-15 tons, that would be a rigid design. If it goes for 10 to 8 tons, we could still consider a semi-rigid design conditionally. But this vehicle will already belong to a completely different class. And this vehicle will be the most in demand in the logistics services market in the near future, because the logistics services market for this carrying capacity has already been established, particularly with Mi-8 helicopters. And by creating an economical airship of this carrying capacity, based on its exact carrying capacity and specific characteristics, we will determine this a bit later when the work on this vehicle reaches the production stage. Currently, a preliminary design is underway. When it reaches the production stage, there will be time to work on the sketches of this vehicle. And this vehicle will not fit into a standard hangar, so when we understand its exact payload capacity, tactical and technical specifications, external appearance, overall look, and so on, we will understand its dimensions, and of course we will know what kind of hangar we will need to build for it. We will design a hangar and acquire land. Yes, let me explain what a hangar is. Many, by the way, correct me, saying to speak in Russian, hangar. But I don't know. Actually, we still need to clarify the terminology, whether hangar and Elling are really the same term. It seems abundantly clear that a hangar is indeed aviation related. A hangar is not merely a garage for airships, rather it is more of an assembly shop where they can be put into serial production. This facility is capable of accommodating 2 airships here simultaneously, assembling them one by one, and subsequently releasing them from here. Additionally, there are small areas on the side, ranging from offices to the production of certain parts, components, and assemblies. This hangar is planned to be built. If we start the development of this vehicle in 6 months, in a year we will already understand what kind of hangar is indeed needed, and begin its necessary construction. So within the framework of this project, we should, and we will have time, to ultimately build this additional hangar and successfully master the serial production of these 10-ton vehicles efficiently. Everything will be built with the consideration of producing at least 1 vehicle per month, up to 2, meaning this hangar will be able to produce between 12 to 24 vehicles per year. This 10-ton vehicle is planned to have a cost price approximately similar to that of the Mi-8 helicopter. You can check the selling price of the Mi-8. In terms of technical specifications, it will exceed the Mi-8 by 2 times. The Mi-8 carries 4 tons. It's from 8 there, but if 15 it's completely there, the cost grows exponentially. That is, if you wear it without, the cost is the same as Mi-8 here. Look why they sell. Why sell this? We calculated it all in broad strokes, and there, when it's released there, sales from 12 to 24 devices. It turns out that the project can start to pay for itself in 3 to 5 years. If here, the project cost is currently estimated to be approximately achievable at around $100 million, certainly associated with the project. The project is at the pre-launch stage, and something may potentially change, but not by more than a kilometer, for sure. With this level of serial production, these vehicles can recoup the project in a year, twice conditionally. Yes, if briefly the project can develop further as at its own expense due to this serial production, and there is room for further development because the transport system will not build itself, and it cannot be done with just 10-ton vehicles.
The task involves multiple steps and processes, including the establishment of a dedicated design bureau, the development and certification of 2 distinct vehicles, the construction of a specialized hangar for their repair, assembly, and other necessary operations, and the initiation of production.
We have an engineering center that is gradually evolving into a design bureau. I believe that by the time the hangar is being built, a full-fledged design bureau will already be formed. In addition to the hangar, which is a large building used for housing aircraft, there will be designated areas specifically set aside for the purpose of factory testing these advanced vehicles, which means that a dedicated flight test center will be established to ensure their performance and safety. Within the comprehensive framework of the Flight Test Center and the state-of-the-art hangar, an extensive educational institution will also be organized for the highly skilled training and rigorous recertification of pilots and experienced technicians, because those who fly these vehicles must be highly qualified. It's clear. The Design Bureau, Production, Flight Test Center, and In-Depth Training Center.
All of this can realistically be created for $100 million within 3 to 5 years. At the same time, as I understand, we are talking about the vehicles that will already be ready for commercial activities, on which one can earn money, but work will also be ongoing on the next vehicles, which will further expand the commercial options for using airships.
Yes, I will talk about the future vehicles a bit later, but with this amount, we will build, through several modifications, this product, plus prepare it for serial production, start its own operation for the purpose of conditionally transferring it to its business in order to sell it conditionally to provide some service. Naturally, it is necessary to gain certain operational experience. We will be working with 1 to 5 such independent vehicles, and these vehicles weighing 10 tons are already much more expensive than this one. If we assemble this one as economically as possible, then this vehicle is already serious, large, and expensive, and within this amount, we will hopefully be able to afford to build 2. And this is the very necessity to absolutely certify it. To indeed obtain a certificate that it is completely safe and can fly, the Russian sky is fully open for it. Therefore, we will construct 2, officially certify them, thoroughly prepare this facility, conditionally for serial production, technological processes, and then produce on order. Within this budget, we will be able to construct several of these and a couple of such vehicles, build a hangar, fully master production, and organize a training center.
So, it turns out, let's say, a turnkey business, in the sense that everything we create is already capable of generating profit, recouping the investments that have been made, but at the same time, as we mentioned today, we do not stop there. The company will continue to develop.
Yes, by the classic scheme, it will naturally pay for itself. Conditionally, you invested 100 rubles, sold 10 airships, and earned 400 rubles. Everything is clear here, but the company can start earning much earlier. Yes, even by building this device, it will already be clear to everyone in the market that a player capable of producing airships has emerged. And commercial orders for the development of these airships can already come from third parties, because the world really needs airships, and everyone has long realized this. And if a player emerges with modern airships, such as a capable team including but not limited to advanced technology features, future prospects and opportunities so on, it is clear that many quickly, well, in fact, everyone has understood that airships are profitable. Having your own airship gives you an advantage over your competitors. So orders will go this design bureau, meaning project can pay off even before its own serial production sales. Plus, no one has cancelled parallel earnings in the form of advertising, conditionally, in the execution of certain services. Additionally, a business can be established. An airship is still a large system consisting of many other subsystems, and some of the subsystems that will be created here will be unique, and the technologies of the subsystems and even the internal subsystems themselves can be commercialized.
That is, this is intellectual property that is created within the company.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, as of today, you know.
You asked earlier about other types and sizes? Yes. This is not where it will stop. Naturally, the project will continue to develop over the next 5-10 years. The task is already set, firstly, to further increase the airship's payload capacity and reach 200-300 tons, conditionally stepping over 40, 100, and 250. For now, I'll say it like this. I mentioned both 200 and 300. In fact, all of this will become much more clear and more evident closer to the matter. At this moment in time, to even begin to say that the airship will be approximately 200 tons of a specific type with particular engines is utterly and completely impossible to even discuss, because it is still a rather complicated and complex and very intricate apparatus, and everything significantly influences its conditional geometry and weight characteristics, starting from the advanced and innovative technologies that will be used, materials, fabrics, and so on, to the type of tasks being solved and how fast it is going. Its shape changes. Due to the shape, the loads change. Due to the loads, the materials change. Due to the materials, the weight summary changes. But it is clear that it is necessary to further evolve in terms of payload capacities, and the company will work on this. Besides that, the company will focus on the development and creation of transport solutions. That is, a single tourist airship is not a transport. A transport solution is when there is an unresolved task at the present moment, for example, in remote areas, hard-to-reach areas, or like the island nation of Indonesia, for instance, which also has a lot of problems. They carry out logistics between their islands using ferries, and they are quite tired of it because, after all, the driver of the economy is the flow of material and information, such as goods and data. Information flows are currently moving incredibly fast, but it's indeed time for material flows and logistics instruments and devices, and it is precisely this niche that transport systems fill. It is not solved by any specific apparatus. The airship is just a small part of the system that needs to be built, and the company intends to develop and create such solutions. And this market is already... This is not a market where you say that my production cost of the apparatus is the same as that of the Mi-8, but I can sell it for twice as much because it is twice as... In this particular market, it is often observed and noted that the continuous and consistent flow and movement of air cargo transportation, truck transportation, and railways is such that I can take 0.5% of that because there are no roads laid out, neither these nor those. By the time you build an airfield there, you will go bankrupt. Let me do this with my airships. I just need to descend once and create a small platform for myself. Conditionally, because the advantage of an airship over all other modes of transport is still the lack of required infrastructure. It is not needed for helicopters either, but helicopters do not have such load capacities, and they cannot fly as far as an airship can. Thus, it has no competitors and its own advantages. Therefore, the company will focus on building transport solutions and transport systems. These are completely different markets.
But we are not only talking about Russia.
Of course, SOLARGROUP is an international company. Investors from every country are interested.
That is, indeed, in different countries we can create various transport solutions, addressing specific problems or reducing the cost of a certain route, so to speak. And thus we...
In fact, it is likely not just about reducing the cost of an existing route, but rather initially doing what no one has ever done before. There are indeed many unresolved tasks, and there are so many of them that even if we tackle those without any competitors, it will be more than enough for the project to become a billion-dollar venture in annual profit.
Well, as we certainly and indeed stated at the first conference, we are indeed creating an industry. It turns out that based on the creation of such transport solutions, both local and not only, we are undoubtedly creating entire industries. Absolutely. At the same time, I would like to emphasize once again, what horizon are you talking about now? This is not 3 to 5 years and not even possibly 10 years, or is 10 years also realistic?
In 10 years, or over the next decade, gaining mastery over several transport routes, specifically within the framework of transport solutions, is possible in various ways, and these routes will be cash machines. They will truly generate incredible money because you will be solving the problems that no one has solved before. In fact, we tried to assess the logistics market on the planet, and it turned out that the economy is logistics. It is impossible to evaluate it. There is really a lot of money involved. I am solving a logistics problem. In general, there is a lot of money there. I wanted to say something. You say we are creating an industry, but that sounds very grand. In fact, let's put it differently. We are creating transport solutions that will lead to... Yes, and I am just getting to...
That's why I asked you how many years, because currently the team has an understanding of where the company will generally develop, let's say, the direction of development for approximately 20 to 30 years ahead. There is an understanding of what goals we want to achieve and why all this is being done. However, the plan is to start earning money not in 20 or 30 years, but to begin earning almost immediately. That is, everyone is interested in starting to make money as quickly as possible, even with the first device. However, creating one device or several devices, or 5 or 10 devices, is not the goal for which we are doing all this.
Yes. And the most interesting thing, the main point I want everyone to understand is indeed the natural distinction. There are very many differences. The device can absolutely start earning, but you shouldn't set the goal for the device to recoup the entire project. By not setting such a foolish goal, you create a device with clear economic and technical characteristics that are understandable to the market, meaning it becomes part of the market. When you set the task that not 3 devices should cover the entire project, well, it's clear that the device is golden. No one needs that. Only the wealthy can afford it. This is super rich tourism, and this is the path that all airship operators are currently following, and in general they have followed before. Or military. With the military, everything is clear. Now there are fighters, such as unmanned aerial vehicles and so on. Military airships sound quite outdated.
But depending on what various different tasks the airships would be for, there would be tasks to find.
Yes, if there were a chisel, any master would find a way to use it. The same goes for business. When receiving a new tool, they immediately understand its benefits, pros and cons, and start using it. Something like that. And the stratosphere? By the way, yes, airships fly on Archimedes' principle, on buoyancy, and with this buoyancy, one can even rise to the stratosphere, and the stratosphere is precisely that uncharted layer. People have already mastered the air. There were airships, there are helicopters, there are airplanes, drones and quadcopters. You can list anything. In space, various devices fly, and the orbital stratosphere is practically unoccupied, offering a vast expanse of potential. The stratosphere doesn't necessarily have an advantage over air or space. However, it has its unique characteristics in terms of possibilities and opportunities for exploration and innovation. This layer of the atmosphere presents a distinct environment that could be harnessed for various technological advancements and scientific research, providing a new frontier for human ingenuity. In general, stratospheres are entirely different. There you combine tasks that satellites perform, making them cheaper and better, but they are, of course, in essence, a bit different. Just a bit. But the market in general is crazy. The market is in fact crazy, and creating a stratospheric airship is possible. There is an airship that can lift 40 tons near the ground. It has its specific dimensions. An apparatus of the same dimensions that will ascend to the stratosphere can lift a maximum of approximately 500 tons in total. I'm talking about altitudes up to 20 kilometers or so, and even 20 is quite a lot, which is quite significant. About 15 is probably good, because the lifting capacity of the airship naturally decreases, as you might expect, along with the density of the atmosphere as it ascends upwards, gradually, in altitude. And such an apparatus that can lift a ton of payload into the stratosphere will first and foremost indeed be cheaper than launching a satellite that performs similar work and is sent into orbit by a rocket. If something happens, there's nothing that can be done. A stratospheric airship descends back, and then you replace something, re-equip, service it, and lift it back up. It can easily hover over a designated point and perform the same work that a satellite does. But I don't remember the exact figures. In general terms, there is analytics when the entire surface of the Earth is divided into pixels, more specifically and precisely by meters. And each meter is filled with pixels in bits, indicating how many bits of information a communication satellite can provide per square meter, such as internet, photography, and everything is summarized in this context. In such a system, the resolution of stratospheric devices, like stratospheric airships, is almost an incredibly 1,000 times greater. This means that Google Maps and Yandex Maps could become a remarkably 1,000 times more accurate and clearer. Navigation could improve by the same significantly 1,000 times, communication could be more stable, and speed could be faster. Many are eager to go to the stratosphere, again driven by the appealing story of stratospheric tourism. Yes, they say, here we are launching stratospheric tourist balloons. In reality, they are developing technology for stratospheric communication systems, and the market is heading into trillions, meaning the figures. It's not exactly Internet 2.0, but Communication 2.0. This is when, instead of towers and satellites, you have something in between as a potential solution between these two extremes. Again, it's very challenging to calculate the market. It's all conditionally dependent. You can conditionally add up all the towers and all the satellites and say that this is 100%, and you can potentially occupy even 1% of that 1%. Or you can occupy more, which would be more than enough. The company that first launches such a stratospheric platform will, of course, create a significant precedent, and that company will soar into the stratosphere in terms of its stock value. Therefore, by this point, or even already at this point, one should think about having the company on some exchange and consider the potential benefits of doing so that its stocks could soar into the vast and limitless expanse of space and attract a wide range of investors and explore the myriad opportunities it presents. This is one of the ways to earn money, even without making a profit yet. In general, a company producing modern airships clearly has the potential to achieve this in the future. Simply put, the growth of a company through speculation is a way for investors to earn. That's about it.
So, will the company Aeronova also be involved with stratospheric airships? How quickly can this be achieved? Perhaps.
Well, a stratospheric platform like that, airship-based, is something that has never existed in nature before. In general, there have been airships, there have been stratospheric probes, but such controlled platforms have not existed. And I think, most likely in approximately 3 to 5 years, the company will get closer to assembling and launching the first devices into the stratosphere. I believe that in 5 to 6 years, the first devices will potentially fly there. Experimental ones, of course, are indeed likely not to have such payload capacities, but these are already serious devices. The experiments and everything related to what precedes the certified platform has already even begun.
Therefore, it becomes apparent that all devices will indeed be developed in parallel in one way or another, in various ways, but 2 certified devices are ready within this project, and the foundation will already be laid for the rest.
Well, that's correct because, for example, the unmanned system will be tested on the first device, on the second device. Other systems will be tested. On the third, more systems, and I will explain later which ones specifically speaking, but these understandings already exist. And somewhere around the fourth device, I mean a size of roughly 2,000, well, let's say it's approximately 2,000, then this one is 20,000, and some 40,000 will be built, and the next device will already incorporate all the tested solutions and technologies. In total, and probably by creating this device, the company will already be on par with Roscosmos, SpaceX, meaning it's like you have now. Just as Elon Musk has a super modern rocket, you will have a super modern airship. Not like everyone else's, but with such product properties that you will live for.
Well, yes, and when he said he would do it, many laughed. Probably not many, about 90%.
Yes, indeed, comparing oneself to Musk is a strange thing. Everyone talks about how Elon Musk.
Yes, but it's just interesting that he undoubtedly achieved what some didn't believe in, maybe even many.
Well, actually, I am a former employee of Roscosmos. I worked at Space Enterprises. And when Elon Musk claimed that he would land stages, all our design bureaus didn't understand why. Look, we are making a rocket. There was a one-time engine launch, that's it. You can't stop it anymore, it works. We detached the stage, it fell in the field, and that's it. Build your next rocket calmly. No, here you need to redesign the engine so that it can be reused. Here you need to strengthen the entire structure, first of all. Also take additional fuel with you to dock back. This all reduces the rocket's efficiency. And still, like, why? It was completely unclear why. It's inefficient. He landed once. Well, it was clear. At first it didn't work, ha ha ha. Then he landed twice, then he landed again. When he landed the same thing for the 7th time in a row, they were like, well, apparently it's effective. Yes, it was certainly fun with Elon Musk. He broke this paradigm related specifically to rockets and started a kind of race, and now everyone has begun to make reusable rockets. In fact, there was also, well, we have a problem like that in our country. The fact that Elon Musk launched a rocket, then it landed somewhere nearby, he brought it back. The most difficult part is to recheck the rocket, to check the stage for defects, and so on, for functionality before the second launch. And in our country, logistics. We transported the booster stages from Moscow, this eastern one, across all of Russia. There are zones where rockets make their landing. It was located somewhere in the vast and expansive Altai region, and our logistics are such that it was actually more convenient and efficient to drop the rocket, and I believe that a modern airship, even a 10-ton one, will demonstrate similar remarkable characteristics to what Elon Musk's rocket demonstrated. Yes, airships used to build rockets. Rockets were capable of flight, but like this, they didn't fly.
The effect will be the same, and someone is listening to us now and thinking, well, guys, you're doing a good business. Yes. What do I get from this? And let's tell you again how you can become part of what Fyodor was just talking about. I think I might draw a little too. I think it will be like this. It's clearer, because while I was thinking about how I would say this in a clearer way, I realized that it would most likely be more convenient to draw as well, and effectively. I hope it will be clearly visible now. I hope you understand what kind of business we are doing. Fyodor also mentioned the timelines and the amount needed to implement this. In order to achieve this ambitious goal, a new company was specifically created for this purpose, and we have already mentioned its name, which is Aeronova. Currently, half of this newly established company, or to be more precise, exactly 49%, is being transferred to those investors who are joining the project at this moment. The crucial question of how much will be allocated to you specifically depends on the timing of your investment and the amount you decide to invest from that substantial pool of $100 million. In order to legally formalize all this, we have done it in a manner that is in a similar manner to how we did it in the previous project in the past. The financial company SOLARGROUP is a company that has a financial license to attract investments and engage in financial activities in general. SOLARGROUP becomes a co-founder of the company Aeronova, precisely for that 49% share as well. As an investor, today you are acquiring, as a part of your investment strategy, shares of the company Aeronova and shares of the company SOLARGROUP, and thus your money is transferred by SOLARGROUP to the company Aeronova for the implementation of the project, minus the expenses directly needed to attract this financing. This includes even conducting such a webinar, which is a marketing expense that SOLARGROUP incurs in order to be able to attract these funds in the innovative and promising sector of renewable energy, which is a crucial step in your investment journey. As you understood, in return, you receive investment shares. Shares are such rights of claim. The question is, what can you claim? You can claim a part of this company. In what legal form can this be? At the moment, the company Aeronova is a limited liability company, LLC, and it will be so at the beginning. Then, the company Aeronova will transition into the form of a joint stock company and will issue shares. What will happen at that moment? At that moment, SOLARGROUP will receive approximately 49% of the shares from the joint stock company Aeronova in the near future. And after that, SOLARGROUP will retain these 49% of the shares of the company Aeronova to transfer to those investors who joined the project, and it is these shares that you received that you will exchange for shares, thus ultimately becoming a full co-owner of the business that Fyodor spoke about. In essence, I think you understand what to do with the shares when you own them, as Fyodor clearly explained. In conclusion, as you might already know, and therefore in the future, you will be able to manage these shares effectively. When you own shares of any company, you are a shareholder, and you have two opportunities to earn income. The first is dividends. The company Aeronova will distribute half of the profits to investors, and as you may have already seen today, these are quite considerably substantial figures, and even from one project, as you are aware, we can already fully recoup the investment. The second way to earn income is if you immediately take the opportunity to sell your shares. More precisely, if you keep your shares, you will receive dividends. You can also sell your shares. You can sell them right away or sell them in 5 years, as soon as that opportunity arises. However, in my personal opinion, truly large capital is generated when people know how to wait. And if you look at the shares of any successful company, many companies grow by 100, 1,000, or even tens of thousands of times over 10, 20, or 30 years. It is clear that when the company Aeronova earns zero and is only planning to build its first airship, you can buy a percentage of this company at one price. As soon as this company launches its first airship in Neva, its valuation will increase at least 10 times in the eyes of other investors, and its potential will be higher. As soon as this company starts earning its first money, it will again significantly increase its valuation by at least x10. But when this company begins to produce airships in series and starts building its own logistics passenger solutions, it will undoubtedly be a completely different company. If you own shares of this company, today they are worth one price, and tomorrow, accordingly, another in the near future. I'm not even mentioning that As Fyodor said, the valuation of a company, like the stock market, is a very interesting thing. Often, companies worth billions earn zero or even incur losses because people believe in this business and understand that current profits are being reinvested to earn not approximately $1 billion in 5 to 10 years, but to capture 10 to 20% of the market you are entering.
Let me add a couple of comments.
Let's go.
First of all, you can all look up the statistics online. They are all available. Companies are becoming billion-dollar entities at a rapid pace. You mentioned 5 to 10 years, but in reality the pace has accelerated significantly, and you are aware of this. Look at how companies are performing. Their stocks are rising much faster now. This is a completely different era with a completely different speed. And secondly, I wanted to comment that all such large projects are dirigible except for China, which is understandable. As for dirigible space projects, it's not just Elon Musk. Many other private companies are involved, all founded by billionaires. They established them at the very beginning because they know they will be mega profitable. When a certain MVP appears, they go for an IPO, raise money from investors, and those investors then become wealthy. About that growth you mentioned, in this case, those billionaires are us. We are collectively pooling our resources to take that profitable piece that no one ever gives away. Both Elon Musk and Richard Branson, who is with Virgin Galactic, and all those involved in dirigibles, including Sergey Brin, no one gives away the parent company to anyone at the very beginning. In this case, we are not billionaires, so we come together with you to build that very tempting pie.
Well, yes. Essentially, we are doing what is already happening in the world. There are a huge number of startups in the world that need money, all sorts of budding business ideas, anyone at all, and someone is giving them money. Usually it's either people who already have money and their wealth increases even more, or intermediaries. Banks, investment funds that pay 10, or even as we can say now, 20% annually, while they can earn super profits, because often such companies come to them. This is the logical path we will take. We go to an investment fund or a banker, and he will surely be able to allocate some amount for us. Here, people, yes, this is actually an interesting feature of crowdfunding, by coming together, can avoid these intermediaries and get the very best conditions that are usually unavailable to them in ordinary life, which are typically accessible to those who already have access to such companies, resources, knowledge, or anything else. So today, investors are offered to acquire a part, half of the company. At this moment specifically, yes, you can buy investment shares, and yes, you can buy 1 share, 2 shares, 3 shares. Such functionality is available to us, but we recommend buying shares in bulk. We call this an investment share package. For example, our average investment is $2,000. You invest $2,000, and there will be, for instance, I don't remember exactly how many, 200,000 investment shares. Accordingly, you can invest $2,000 right away, or you can pay in installments, for example, over 10-20 months, investing just $100, $200 a month, receiving a share package worth $2,000. The most important thing is, why take an installment plan? The fact is that our financing is generally divided into 20 funding stages. With each stage, we reach some important milestones. The risks of the project decrease, and accordingly, the investment conditions change, because of course, when investors invest here or when investors invest there, the risks for such investors are completely different. But the investment conditions will also be different for them. That is, by investing $2,000 here, the investor will receive many more shares than by investing the same $2,000 at the 18th funding stage. What stage are we at now? Right now, we are not even at the first stage, which we talked about today. We are currently at the 0 pre-launch stage. We are somewhere around here with you. We are approaching the first stage, and this is the stage when we publicly prepare this project together with you and show how we do it. What is the peculiarity? The peculiarity is that at this stage, there are still various uncertainties. Something may change somewhere, but for the risk that investors take on here, where only the most loyal, most devoted investors, those who know us and generally trust us, invest, they receive the very best. Because today, on average, for every dollar invested, an investor receives 1,000 shares. This is the average for every dollar invested today. As soon as we move to the first funding stage, on average, for every dollar invested, an investor will receive 500 shares, meaning that today it is exactly twice as profitable to invest than it will be at the first stage, as soon as this change occurs.
The graph looks like this with half here, and then it smoothly continues like this.
Yes, later, when the stages change, that's right, these conditions will gradually get a little worse, a little worse, a little worse, and here we have x2. This is the most important milestone because as soon as the first stage begins, there will be no questions. Everything will be clearly known. What devices, when, what, everything in detail. Contracts, all companies are registered. There may still be some questions now, and something may change, but as Fyodor said, overall, not globally, but still. One way or another, today you have the opportunity to join the project under conditions that others will never have, because these pre-launch conditions will never be repeated, even for, let's say, some privileged investors who, for example, are in the club of 100. Yes, they have privileged conditions, but they will never be able to buy even at the 0 stage. That is, this condition is only for those who are here and now. So if you like the project, if you want to support domestic innovations, if you want to support Soviet scientists and developers who are ready to bring their technologies to life, and thanks to these technologies the company Aeronova can earn quite a lot of money, which we talked about today, then today is probably the best opportunity. And perhaps you have questions. Perhaps you have questions, including the ones you mentioned. Interesting, yes, but right now I suggest you ask them to us. And Fyodor and I will answer these questions. Like always.
You mentioned the Club of 100. Tell what these 100 chosen ones are.
We have the exclusive Club of 1,000.
Within the framework of the previous project, now current.
Yes, and the Club of 100. The Club of 1,000 consists of thousands of investors who will be the first to invest an actual amount of $5,000 in our project. This exclusive group is designed to bring together a select group of individuals who are committed to supporting our vision.
That is, the first $5 million were received from just 1,000 people.
Yes, but at the same time someone may invest earlier, but someone faster with the purchase of $5,000. So there is a race here. Those who manage to invest $5,000 first will enter this club.
Well, regarding the project, have they already counted how many thousands are occupied in the club?
This is counted. This information is automatically available. I haven't looked at it right now, but there was an idea to definitely show this information in the personal account because, as they say, people are interested in it. Participation in the club.
In the first project, the club filled up with thousands in the first year.
Yes, in the first year. In the first year. And people, I can say, are using the conditions that are there because, among other things, there are privileges regarding investment stages. For example, at the 10th stage, it will be possible to invest under the conditions of the 7th stage, that is, -3 stages. They have various privileges, such as access to different events, various closed events for them. They also hold webinars for them. For the club, again, they have 2 clubs, let's say VIP and Super VIP. For example, if we talk about the 1,000 club, they have free access to our events that we pay for so they can come, for example, to.
The conference, to clarify, is not free admission. We charge for entry here, but these are people from various countries who can come
at our conferences right in Moscow, which will take place on November 16th. Of course, they also have investment conditions, I think, -3 or maybe even more stages. I honestly forgot.
That is, here is a person who invested so much money that it is even profitable for the company to bring him back here at their own expense.
It's $25,000.
Well, it's his expense.
Yes, it's about $25,000. People investing $100, $200, and even $300,000.
And what exactly perhaps is the maximum check?
In the first project, the minimum check is more than $1 million or more than $1.5 million.
Maximum.
Maximum, yes, actually.
One person paid $1.5 million.
Somewhere around that, yes, somewhere around that.
And the average payment?
The average payment is approximately $2,000. Yes, by the way, let's see how many airships we have now, who our record investor is, and what the amount is. Accordingly, the last advantage is the clubs that assign their personal manager. So any questions, any problems or issues with payment systems, personal communication can always resolve issues. It's also quite convenient, like a concierge service, as it's called now in banking or with various investment brokers. Therefore, it's also excellent.
The opportunity to be in the club of the chosen, so to speak, is briefly this. If you plan to invest a lot, what will happen? Excuse me, questions? Let's take a look. Let's move on to the questions.
The main computer, which is responsible for managing all system operations, is currently trying to discharge at a rate of 25%. Therefore, let's proceed to the questions section. I would like to remind everyone that I will be actively monitoring and looking at questions on both vContact and YouTube platforms, so feel free to start writing your inquiries. To begin, I'll start with the questions from vContact. In the last stream, you mentioned that 49% of the shares purchased by investors in the airship would become shares in the company Aeronova. But now I read on the website that the company will be called Aerostatica Plus. Are these two different companies or just a name change? No, Stanislav, that information is inaccurate. The website should be updated, by the way. This question I will clarify.
In general, yes, it is the same company. The name has just changed.
Yes, therefore the company Aeronova is the current name, and basically
This is a brief overview of why the pre-launch is happening. Even those people who watched last week, today again. And something has changed here. Well, for now that's it. So, Stanislav
asks, I became an investor in the airship. The contract specifies the jurisdiction of the state of Vanuatu, not Vanuatu, but Vanuatu, and now not Vanuatu, but Comoros. And look, our Solar Group, the financial company we talked about, has changed its jurisdiction. It still remains an offshore investment company, that's true, but no longer in Vanuatu. So, in which jurisdiction will the future airship company be? Where will the taxes go? Which courts will determine the rights of the owners? And so on. Will the company have an OGRN and when? This is a Russian company, Fyodor? So, is it currently an LLC?
In the Unified State Register of Legal Entities, EGRUL, it is currently listed under a different name. The process of its reorganization, change of OKVED codes, and name change is underway. This will be a Russian LLC, and the co-founder will be the same Solar Group that is Comorian. All of this will also be registered in the registers of the Comoros Islands, so don't worry. The current project was created using the same scheme. Sovelmash, you can take a look. It is currently in a special economic zone in Technopolis, Moscow, an exemplary construction. The money has reached Russia?
Yes. We are a strange offshore. It turns out we are not taking money out of offshore, but rather bringing it from offshore to Russia.
Well, actually, yes. When the project started, there were even 2 previous engines before Duyunov's, but they were quite chaotic. When Duyunov's engines began, cryptocurrency was still in a stage of conditional emergence, and now it is clear that with the help of cryptocurrency, one can pull funds from different countries into some country where they can be legitimized, where they are legal. And before, it was completely unclear that such large amounts of money could be moved through crypto. Therefore, this financial instrument allows money to be thrown in from any side into the offshore. So, to gather money from all over the planet, the offshore became the entry point. And the exit, both in the previous and current cases, is that the money is invested here in Russia.
Yes, as we have already mentioned, despite the webinar being conducted in Russian, many more countries are actually participating. Currently, we have representatives from 4 countries in the studio, people from where we have registrations, investors. Therefore, creating a legal entity for a financial company in Russia is simply not possible for many reasons. Well, yes, the company attracting investments is Russian. I watched a recent video about an artificial intelligence developer for airships in the company. As far as I understand, the current software is foreign. Will there be problems with it in the future from Western countries? Is it possible to design and use Russian analogs right away? Especially since analogs of control systems have already been created for airplanes.
I can indeed answer that you watched the video about Milad. Milad is a non-native individual, but the code he creates is our sovereign one on the territory of Russia, and the hardware and software part created by Dmitry Orlov is completely his. It is entirely domestic, so everything we have is domestic.
On the contrary, we are using foreign experience. Milad is a foreigner, and he reads a lot of foreign material, so to speak, and you can always borrow something or learn something interesting, rather than being closed off within yourself.
Yes. By the way, I just opened the statistics on investors regarding the previous question, and India ranks second in the number of investors, followed by Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, Vietnam, Togo, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Germany, Belarus, Peru, Bulgaria, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Senegal, Macedonia, Nigeria, France, Latvia, Mozambique, South Africa, Romania, Haiti, Austria, the Netherlands, Ecuador, Moldova, Nepal, Italy, Congo, Lithuania, Israel, Turkey, Switzerland, Indonesia, Mali in general.
These are those who have already invested in new generation airships in the countries as of today.
I haven't even read half of the list.
Yes, that's why the project is international. It's not just some pretty words, it really is. So, we answered about the software. After the meeting on November 16th, will investors in the airship sign an additional contract to become investors in a company separate from Solar Group? Stanislav, the question is not entirely clear. Indeed, on November 16th, we are more likely having a conference rather than a meeting. Well, after it. I don't know what you mean in the evening, but we won't be signing anything at the conference. Our legal scheme is organized in such a way that you can easily execute the contract straightforwardly in your personal account. Today, all technologies allow documents to be signed digitally, so we have the opportunity to seamlessly attract funds from a large number of countries, so you can do that there. It has exactly the same legal force. In any case, you are signing the contract today specifically with the company Solar Group, because it is the company that is financing this project. We mentioned that you are acquiring its shares today, and after that, you exchange these shares for shares of the company Aeronova. So, the scheme is exactly like that. We legally cannot sell shares immediately, because selling shares is the sale of securities. This is a completely different legal scheme, completely different legislation.
Other expenses and the system's low efficiency at the start of the project ruin the project itself.
Moreover, each page has different rules.
Yes, and everything is quite different there, and if you do not trust the company Solar Group and its effectiveness, you can come to this event in Moscow, which will be called From Idea to Success, where the entire journey of the previous project will be presented, from the stage of a single prototype to the stage of a large enterprise in Technopolis, Moscow. Yes, and you will clearly understand that Solar Group fulfills all its obligations.
November 16th, Moscow. Do you remember the address?
Yes, at Paveletskaya Metro RBC Hall.
In your personal account, you can find the exact address in the news. Please check and register. I hope there will be enough spots for you. I'm not sure if they are still available, but in any case, come. We are waiting for you. I think we will find a place, and you will be able to communicate with us and other participants of the company Aeronova. and in general about the next generation airship with other investors and partners. In general, we are waiting for everyone. It starts around 11. RBC Event Center. Yes, RBC Event Center. Well, that's it. You can come by 11 a.m. on November 16th and so on, technically.
If you registered, of course, it's better not to show up without an invitation, or you might get turned away, which would be unpleasant.
Well, of course, yes, definitely register in your own personal account. There is an event. As far as I clearly understand, hydrogen is easier to compress and cheaper to store than helium. Will the company simultaneously and safely develop safe hydrogen usage systems by significantly improving the envelopes and storage systems, since it is cheaper, or focus only on the use of helium?
In the early stages, of course, only helium, but we shouldn't dismiss the use of cheap, eco-friendly hydrogen either. To say that we won't work with it is not right. Stratospheric devices definitely need to be made with hydrogen because, at least in the stratosphere, it is safe. There is no oxygen there, so there is nothing to explode or burn. And improving hydrogen itself, making it phlegmatized in large volumes, the envelopes, the storage system, all of this is necessary. Because the same Hindenburg, which burned so beautifully, had been successfully operated for several years and made an insane number of flights. And all of this was successful, nothing exploded or burned. But in fact it was a powder keg, cotton bags filled with hydrogen, and metal structures made of alloys that also start to burn at that temperature. In short, it was a flying firecracker that was successfully operated for several years. With current technologies, it will be much safer with the same hydrogen. But there is still work to be done, and the main work is not even with the technologies, but with public opinion regarding their danger. I even know of some regulations prohibiting the use of hydrogen. They are indeed old, from around that time, but still in effect in some countries.
Cryogenic, exothermic, or other methods of gas storage will be used in stratospheric airships, which is more advantageous and promising for heavy stratospheric airships.
It's hard to say, for me, right now. I'm not a specialist in hydrogen storage, but using it effectively with hydrogen and fuel cells, while combining it with solar energy, is definitely advantageous. I can't say yet how exactly hydrogen will be stored.
Well, like gas storage in general, right? And hydrogen will be used for stratospheric airships, right?
Hydrogen will definitely be used as fuel and as a lifting gas with a 99% probability, so it's very likely that a couple of compressed tanks will be sufficient. It will draw hydrogen from the shell and release it over time.
So, the next question. Can you explain schematically the principle of keeping the airship in place during the unloading of large cargo? It will be pulled sharply upwards. And what ballasts do you plan to use?
There are both ballast systems and non-ballast systems, as well as active ballasting systems, such as those used in various scenarios. There are theoretical and practical proofs that non-ballast systems are quite effective, economical, and feasible for up to 40 tons of lift capacity in various scenarios and conditions. For lift capacities over 40 tons, balancing systems will have to be used, but actually the airship, in many cases. The thing is, if it unloads 200 tons, then it probably has something to load and carry further or back. Solutions will be unique in each case because each airship will be created for its specific task. If the task is to transport people, then naturally the airship is overloaded, meaning it has non-zero buoyancy, not negative, it is overloaded. If everything is turned off, it will descend smoothly, and even when people get out, it won't want to take off. Each airship is indeed very meticulously designed for a particular task with specific systems. As for schematically showing how it is indeed arranged, There are specialists on different systems. Ask this question on Thursday when either Zubkevich or Kamel will be here, and they will gladly draw this system for you. So come on Thursday or watch the previous webinars now. I actually can't quite remember with whom, one of them, and I don't exactly recall which specific webinar they already answered. The active ballasting system has been thoroughly and fully tested. This is when there are tanks for air conditionally, where air is pumped in under extremely high pressure, and it weighs a lot. Meanwhile, the airship unloads the same 100 tons. You can pump approximately 100 tons of air inside. This happens quite quickly during this special operation for unloading. You don't have to wait a week. These are conditionally measurable timeframes of up to an hour, and then you can fly calmly. So systems are available, and they will be used in a combined manner. A bit more specifically about Dmitry Kamel. Will you be sitting? Thursday. How is it arranged? Ask and he will draw it.
Can we say that the developed VTOL airship is a necessary step for creating the Unisky's OTV and the cheap launch of large cargoes into space?
Well, about space. Is OTV the orbital transport solution? Is it that ring that Unitsky talks about?
Probably. I don't know what it was called. I've heard something like that a lot.
Well, actually, Unitsky needs airships to build his road, because first you have to lay the road there, then set up the anchor supports and say, look, a wagon is moving and it doesn't need a road.
Well, yes, to build a road where there are no roads, an airship is needed. Otherwise, yes, in another case, a different road is needed.
Well, regarding that ring, theoretically, it seems to work. But in practice, they have been building the road from Moscow to Ryazan for decades, and here they are creating a belt around the planet that will also fly into space.
What types of landing platforms and passenger terminals for airships do you exactly plan to use? Will passengers need to climb 100 meters up towers with their luggage, especially during landing?
I see, but if passengers need to be transported and this is organized somehow within the city, it will be provided for, and it's all possible to land an airship on the roof of a hotel, and you can, for example, in a relaxed and unhurried manner, leave your room with your luggage, take the elevator up, and actually step right into the airship and pass with your luggage to your cabin. It can be organized that way. If it's unloading and boarding passengers not within the city, but it's a bit different there, of course, although it's unclear why. It's better to aim for, if these are some kind of tourist or passenger transport, it's better to land from city center to city center, and there, work crews along with equipment come from the area where these workers and equipment are located. There, everything should be organized a bit differently. It's unlikely that there will be any masts. That's last century, and people climbing masts via spiral staircases or some elevators is all outdated. The airship can calmly land on a prepared or even unprepared site, in the case of workers or some adventure tourism. It can even land on water. And the airship has a large carrying capacity. From there, you can actually set out on boats and motorboats directly from it.
It is planned to use the first airship with the option of complete loss, due to replacing the lifting gas with air, in the hull and landing it on the ground with passengers. And who will test such operating modes in your company?
In the event of a complete loss and replacement of the lifting gas with air, it is crucial that a complete loss of the lifting gas, which should occur, is addressed. The hull of the airship must completely rupture. Naturally, when designing airships that will carry people, especially passengers, all necessary and required safety measures and systems are thoroughly and completely ensured and implemented. In light airships, parachute systems can indeed be used, such as in airplanes. In helicopters, it's indeed at the present time used. In large airships, you can detach from the hull, and in some plans you can deploy, but this is all nonsense because airships are safe air transport vehicles, and for them to suddenly depressurize like that. If everything detaches, that's impossible. A large airship where people fly is multi-sectioned. Even losing 1, 2, or 3 sections doesn't look like an airplane or helicopter falling like a stone. It's like modern ships. It has one compartment. This section is sealed, and it continues to float calmly. The second one continues to float. The third one continues to float. Try to sink a modern ship. It's quite a challenging task. And it will be the same with the airship. Yes, it will fall at about that speed. This is if suddenly all systems shut down and the propellers stop, but if it is moving forward with the propulsive component at 1.5 degrees, it can easily compensate for any loss aerodynamically. We will conduct experiments to rupture. Completely the hull and see how the gondola falls. Well, if suddenly this gondola is quad propeller based on a quadcopter scheme, we can blow it up and land like a quadcopter, but you talked about this somewhere, didn't you? About what?
About this gondola, when it is made like a quadcopter. I think it's indeed a really cool thing.
This could be an intermediate step, but it is likely unnecessary. It's a kind of aerotaxi that is aerostatically unloaded. Right now, everyone is building aerotaxis with 4 or 8 propellers, and they can fly for a maximum of about 20 minutes. By aerostatically unloading it, you increase the range and duration significantly, and safety. In such a scheme, a complete loss carries no risks at all. The aerotaxi lands back like a quadcopter. But from an economic point of view, it's still unclear whether aerotaxis of such sizes will exist or not. But again, it all depends on mass production. Naturally, it depends on the energy system, storage, and all that. It depends on technological progress in general. We'll see.
Thank you very much for the answers to the questions. They say the webinar is getting better and better, and thank you for the feedback as well. And here's the last question that I see on vContact. I will move on to answer it, reading questions from the new Generation Airships channel. The question is, does your foreign neural network specialist speak Russian?
Sometimes, yes.
How long has he been in Russia? What if he is accidentally a spy?
No, actually, he is our old employee. How long has he been working with us?
Yes. Melad worked at SOLARGROUP, where he was involved in blockchain development. He worked with neural networks. And by the way, Fyodor already knew for a long time that Melad was also working on control systems. I found this out accidentally, and it turned out that Melad realized that he is very much needed here right now, so let's say he was recalled.
How many years has he been in Russia? I don't remember.
In Russia, I think he said 6 or 7 years, which is quite a lot. They suggest 7, yes, he came to Russia, to Moscow. He mentioned that he studied at a university and decided to stay. I think he came with his family due to some family circumstances. He now lives here and really likes it in Moscow. He is from Iran, speaks Persian, speaks fluent English, and speaks Russian well. But when we recorded the interview with him, he said he wanted to speak in English so he could express everything accurately. It's difficult for him in Russian. However, he is a high-level specialist. I think after watching the video, you understood that he is well-versed in all the nuances and details, and I understand that he joins team.
Today Dmitry Orlov came by. He works in his laboratory. Today he came, and they communicated with the guys who are responsible for the dynamics of the device, coordinating the control systems. The dynamics of the device is management, the control system is management. In general, they coordinated, and Melad is also in his laboratory all week. I asked how Melad is doing and what he is working on. He said that Milad has been fully assigned the task of creating interfaces. He is creating and coordinating all interfaces for the control system, so yes, he has definitely integrated. Is he a spy? Beneficial at least. Nothing serious.
On the contrary, it's absolutely quite great that we have a foreign, semi-foreign, and semi-not unique situation.
About 3 years ago, I met him for the first time. I spoke with him in English, and now I confidently chat in Russian. A Russified guy.
Yes, a Russified one. And at the same time, he communicates a lot with various foreign colleagues, not only about the management system, but when we talked about other topics, he is also a programmer himself. The fact that he learns from other programmers is actually very useful. You understand that if you are working in a certain field, learning from the experiences of colleagues from other countries, being able to draw something from them or even observe is always beneficial. He has such an incredible and unique opportunity as well, which is truly remarkable and noteworthy. Guys, greetings to everyone, wishing us fair winds and all the best in our future endeavors and journeys, Dmitry. And they ask a question. One of the first and foremost priorities is to breathe life into the commercial component. The project is still in the active formation phase and requires our utmost attention, dedication, and commitment to ensure its success. I don't know what the question is. Not all functionality is thought out or activated, but once profit appears, it would be optimal to maximize the benefit from the profit for the project and investors. Honestly, I don't quite understand what the question is, Dmitry. Well, maybe I understand that it's about commercial activity, right? Well, they briefly told you, Pavel Igorovich, you are the investment one.
You are working on the project, so let's make it bring a lot of money to the investors. Well, I agree.
Well, today, it seems to me, we explained it, right? Well, in fact, yes, we chose the maximum.
A highly profitable and successful project among all the previous ones, which, well, among all those that were, well, I am sitting in line, carefully sorting through and evaluating somewhere shorter for this position.
Yes, this is definitely the most interesting thing we've come across. Of course, that doesn't mean we haven't encountered anything else interesting. There were many interesting things, but we've already talked a lot about it today, so we won't repeat ourselves on the dirigible.
Well, the dirigible has such a fate. You can Google it. In fact, we are now calming down a bit during those very early periods when we were working in the Urals. We will prepare a report soon, sending what our project is not the first project in crowdfunding on the dirigible, and there were projects 100 years ago and 150 years ago. Many dirigibles were built precisely through collective financing. Apparently they have such a fate. They were also built during the Soviet era, in Germany, in France, and in England.
And even now, we are currently not the only crowdfunding project where the dirigible is actively involved. There is another exciting project as well. So, they ask when I will grow a beard like yours so that we have a common corporate style. I grew a beard, but it doesn't look like Fyodor's. His looks good because he is more red-haired. So let it be. It looks good on him. I have different styles in different seasons. I was curly, then bald, then curly again, and now I have medium-length hair. Maybe Fyodor will change his style too.
The beard has grown, that's enough.
Dmitry, I understand, is asking another question. The question is very long. It is broken into a bunch of messages, and I am trying to comprehend what exactly is meant by that. But I believe I understand that it is about the strategy of reinvesting profits, right? How to effectively maximize profit in terms of dividend reinvestments. In general, this question is about what we discussed regarding what is better to do. For example, if the first wave takes off and we manage to earn some money from it, even if it's just 10 million rubles, Should we pay it out as dividends or reinvest it in the project?
Last time, yes, indeed, we concluded that we need to create some kind of voting body in the personal account.
Yes, and people here remember this and write and suggest their options for how to solve this problem.
The second solution was to approve a certain share of the profits with some document, which would be paid out constantly in any case. Or yes, to approve it with some document and then change this decision through voting in case of a general consensus.
Is there an advantage or perhaps a potential benefit in terms of efficiency or safety to a double-hulled airship?
When it comes to catamaran types, all of these super hybrid and strange shapes that you might encounter are not likely to be particularly effective in practice. I can't definitively say this immediately without further analysis, but based on current understanding and observations, their performance might not meet expectations. It's important to consider various factors and conduct thorough evaluations before drawing any conclusions. We will very soon have a large, extensive, and powerful computational server system in our ambitious project where we can run any solutions, calculate any dynamics. There should also be a fully developed, complex and intricate software computational complex, because of course we can use the current ones, but everywhere there is local adaptation, additional algorithms and comprehensive methodologies and so forth. We have powerful guys in the company. Maybe we can certainly introduce them at the conference who are involved in creating such systems. In our case, one will be created, and as soon as it is created, I will run all the catamarans and non-catamarans, verticals, horizontals, whatever. It's really extremely interesting to calculate everything because it's impossible to build all of this, but with good algorithms and computational power, it will be possible to calculate everything.
We will calculate, and then it will be clear if the roadmap for the enterprise project development is being formed. But as I understand, we mentioned in the last webinar that the work plan for 2000 cubic meters has already been formed for the year, right? So this is also part of the overall roadmaps.
A small part, yes, certainly.
Can we place this somehow? Maybe highlight the most important parts.
We will place this. It is currently formed in terms of a large task, goals, and the status of being launched or in queue. Now we will break this down on a timeline, detail it, and maybe make it public. Most likely,
there is a sphere of sports and competitions. Single-seat standard structures of airships with engines for holding competitions. I don't know. This is not a question, maybe more of a comment. Do you know anything about such a competitive field?
I know that there are such stories with hot air balloons. They are the cheapest airships, and someone is always organizing something with them. This is a bit different, but in any case, when something is going to develop on such a large scale, a lot will form around it, including sports.
How much money was attracted to the Duyunov engine project? Over what period? Over about 7 years, around $90 million was attracted to the Duyunov engine project. There was a question then about how we would attract the same amount in 3 to 5 years, but I think the answer is obvious. We are starting from completely different positions. We have a successful precedent, so to speak, a project that we did together with you. Investors definitely have a positive impact on the reputation of the new project of the Solar Group company, and we can see this from how the project is starting now. Therefore, we are confident that we will exceed these rates, especially since in the last year and a half our results have significantly increased. If in the first year we attracted several $100,000 a month, yes, even in the first few years we were steadily attracting from $1 to $2 million and more, sometimes even over $3 million. Now the rates are different. That is, we are on an upward trend, and the airship project is getting results in the first...
In 3 months, the first $1 million has already been attracted.
Yes.
99 left.
Yes.
But the pace is somewhat different compared to the previous project.
By several times. It is several times higher than it was before. Compared to the first project, investments will go 50% to SOLARGROUP and 50% to airships. Am I correct in understanding that $50 million is needed for the airship? Yes, approximately the proportion is emerging exactly like this, based on experience. We assume it will be roughly in the same values, while, again, this interpretation, 50% will go to SOLARGROUP. We have already said that it is incorrect. These are the funds that will be paid, primarily, to partners, in the form of partnership rewards, as well as in the form of salaries to those people who are involved in promoting this project, for holding various conferences, for conducting these webinars.
If conditionally, then for marketing.
For marketing, yes, they will go for marketing.
Like any budget of another company, such as Yandex, for example, to see how much is spent on marketing.
Yes. Therefore, by the way, crowdfunding is marketing for the company itself, because many people, when they know that there is a company in Russia that builds airships, this is also advertising for it. This is generally a plus of crowdfunding. Therefore, one can certainly divide how much went to marketing and how much went to the project itself, but that is secondary. There is an amount, this is the total cost of the project, and of course this amount includes marketing expenses. Just like any product, it is somewhat included in the marketing.
Not only for marketing, but for that 1 rupee or Nigerian dollar to turn into 1 ruble, so many different iterations occur, with up to 10% or even more simply lost on commissions.
Yes, let's say it can vary. The cost of money, how much it costs to sell any product, how much it costs. The question is, you don't say that out of $1,000, how much a smartphone costs. And that means $500 will go to the manufacturing plant. And this will go to the marketing department at Apple. You don't develop it that way. But this is also a big topic, by the way. We talked about it in quite detail.
I think we will have to talk about it again, because the audience is changing, new interested people are coming in regarding airships, while the question is old.
We will have to cover it in a new way. 3 to 5 years means 20 stages, or will 20 stages stretch over 10 years? 3 to 5 years. Yes, that's 20 stages. 10 years. We talked today about the perspective of 10 years. 20 years, in general, decades ahead. Of course, as I said, this does not mean that the project will be funded all this time. It does not mean that we plan to make money only in 30 years. It means that we know the direction in which we are moving. Can an airship actually twist a large tree?
Twist? It depends on which one, of course it can. Why? That's the question. It's easier to automatically attach to the tree. Mechanization is about freeing the tree from its roots at the lower part of the trunk and taking it away like this, picking one tree at a time without getting to them there, but they say not to touch the forest. Many investors say, don't touch the forest, keep your hands off the forest. In fact, the forest is being developed anyway. Airships will appear, and they will help in its development. You can't prohibit the entire planet from cutting down forests, because tables, paper, pharmaceuticals, fuel, a lot of things are made from wood, and wood is a renewable resource, and it is the most eco-friendly resource instead of doing the same from oil, and forests need to be properly cared for. That is, if the forest is not maintained for a long time, and mature trees are not harvested, everything falls, rots, and turns into a swamp. Look, yes, how many years our forests have, and not so many years. And those that are old, well, the Tver marshlands. There are individual trees that are thousands of years old, but those are individual trees, not a forest. The forest still needs some care. Otherwise, if you take a large tree, 200 tons, it's unlikely that a tree of 200 tons can withstand being pulled out from there. But it shouldn't be used like that. It's like using a microscope to hammer a nail.
And about the roadmap, Is there any understanding of when it will actually be released? Even in some approximate form, a rough outline?
It will be released by the new year.
Well, precisely. We already demonstrated it in a rough outline during the first presentations. Something might have changed, but in details, yes, it was like that one way or another. The question is just in what form.
A roadmap is needed. The roadmap, for example, is declared in the personal account, let's say, by the new year, if as some document with signatures and seals. Then the question is why and for whom. We are creating a development program, which will be laid out on paper. This is a necessity for certain legal issues. Will this program be? The development will likely be announced when it is created, probably soon. I actually don't know because work is still ongoing. Right now, everything is focused on the event that will happen at the conference and before the conference. Right now, minds have completely shut down in that regard. After the conference, we will sit down and sort it out. I will say what's going on with this development program about a week or two after the conference. Everything is on hold because the conference is in 3 days.
Will there be refrigerated airships?
An engineer technologist is just sitting, Googling the word refrigerator. Okay, Google.
Well, while you are busy searching on Google,
I understand. It's definitely something cooling. But why not? Yes, there are excellent ideas, like transporting seafood and other perishable goods. It will be much faster. They will arrive much fresher, and natural refrigeration can be used if you transport them at an altitude of 5 kilometers. This system won't require energy because it's cold enough up there, and the air is thin, with fewer bacteria, and blah blah blah. So there are many ideas for using airships. Someone also mentioned the refrigerator concept. I just pulled this from my head. We had an idea competition, and someone wrote about using an airship as a refrigerator. Just lift it higher, and there you go. It can transport fresh and preserved products. There will be such a demand from businesses. It will be technically feasible to implement it. Therefore, there will be a refrigerator.
did we perhaps by any chance have a contest for the name of the airship?
For the name,
Yes. Who won? Did anyone announce the winners of the airship naming contest? We once asked how to name the airship in Russian, right? I think I also suggested Aeronova. Aeronova.
it wasn't a contest or a giveaway, it was just in the chat like, guys, let's think. If I said it was some kind of contest with a prize, actually the meeting is a bit overloaded, so poke me if it was a giveaway. And then I'll say that the blacksmith who suggested Aeronova won. So, the one who called for Aeronova won. But Aeronova is the name of some space company that hasn't existed for many decades. So the name has indeed been passed down. But yes, Aeronova, guys.
By the way, I've gotten so used to Aeronova so quickly, it even seems to me that I like it more than just new. They ask why the investment contract is signed, and the platform service lists Slavyanka as the project, not airships, and I draw your attention to the fact that there are 2 different contracts. You can write 2 contracts. You just apparently read the wrong one. There are 2. Each project has its own contract.
Yes. In fact, the contractual framework there will likely be updated soon. This is related to the legal work currently being done, and that's why it's in the pre-launch stage.
And it even explicitly states in the contract that this is merely a preliminary contract, which is subject to further negotiations and changes. Speaking of airships, they often mention that the refrigerators installed in them are quite strange and unusual, but the concept of a sauna airship would indeed be an interesting and unique innovation. It turns out to be more like a floating bathhouse in the sky. And this same person writes, I will be on every broadcast, about Ostreltsov, Bogomolov's accelerator, Nikia 63, and so on.
I understand. Well, excuse me. I hope everything will be fine with Ostreltsov. Our conference will take place, and the investors will be here for about a week, right, Pasha? Yes, even a week and a half. So a week and a half after the conference, I will release a separate video about the meeting with Ostreltsov, because I'm personally interested in this topic. Nuclear technology is unlikely to be something popular, but if the question is that the technology is super promising, it just requires to be supported, and adequately. There are guys there who understand nuclear technologies and expertise, namely Artyom and Boroda.
Solar Group has a chance to radically change history on a planetary level, thanks to these, Ostreltsov, and so on.
In fact, Solar Group has the option to help Ostreltsov and his innovative technology to potentially gain recognition by the renowned Russian nuclear corporation Rosatom. Previously, we encountered a similar situation with an individual named Tsoy, whose surname and first name I unfortunately cannot recall, except for Dmitry. He was engaged in oil cracking, creating installations that broke long chains with accelerated batches of electrons, using magnetrons to repolarize them so they wouldn't reassemble. And by changing the modes of the accelerator and magnetron, one could specify the particular fraction desired at the output, even high-octane gasoline immediately. And we understood that it was indeed unlikely that Solar Group would be allowed, well, as a public company, to intrude on Gazprom's territory or anywhere else, but we invited him there. One event, another, third event, and before that, he knocked on all the doors and everyone told him goodbye. We talked about him, and literally, a couple of months later, there you go, a contract, or rather, it wasn't even a contract, but there was some kind of order, I don't remember where it came from above. Either Rosneft commissioned the creation of a working group with Rosneft, the Gubkin Institute of Oil and Gas, and some other company, I don't remember which, to develop his technology. The same could happen with Ostreltsov. It's unlikely that we will be able to engage in this, but for the technology to be noticed and taken up by competent authorities, that's quite possible.
Misha writes that there is a beef with Ostreltsov and Rosatom. Beef? Well, some kind of, let's say, conflict. I don't know if it's strong or not, but they should meet and publicly discuss the topic of future civilization.
Have you seen the Rhythm 200? That's what it's definitely called, I believe. Yes, it indeed seems to be called Rhythm 200. It's an engineering marvel created by the guys from Rosatom. It's a small installation that was used on icebreakers and submarines, among other things. Now it will be carefully adapted for local power plants in various regions. Those who understand should come to realize that overall, in the long run, we are performing quite well with nuclear energy in the country, in terms of safety and efficiency. First of all, they launched a closed cycle, experimented, and it appears they have even successfully integrated it into the system for commercial production. Plus, these miniature reactors are a significant breakthrough in the field of nuclear technology, and they have even developed a revolutionary space system called Zeus, which is an interplanetary tugboat based on a nuclear system. There was also a problem with energy. Since the times of the Soviet Union, Americans wanted to launch a powerful nuclear reactor into space, but no one understood how to organize a cooling system because there was nothing to absorb the heat. Here, at least there is an atmosphere, water, or any coolant that can carry away heat. But in a vacuum, heat is carried away by radiation. It was unclear how to organize such power. Now, modern Rosatom has solved this problem. And thanks to Rosatom, Roscosmos can now create such tugs. So overall, Russia is significantly ahead of the whole planet in the field of nuclear energy. And if Streltsev adds something else, it will undoubtedly certainly be very interesting. But yes, I saw what he declares. It's also something completely fantastic. Well, we'll see.
As for the stratospheric project Loon from Google, we talked about it. After its closure, all the information was made publicly available. Will you be using it?
Yes, we are already using it.
That?
Do you all know, are you studying? Naturally. If you're interested in these stratospheric devices, we can invite Dmitry Sergeyevich again, along with the guys from Bauman, who are currently doing a number of projects for us on stratospheric devices. They will tell us, maybe even where and how they participated in this loon.
So, probably the last question, in your opinion, realistically speaking, over the span of 10-15 years, can an investor's $1,000 really grow to $1 million? That is, $1 million means a 1,000-fold increase. Achieve such a significant growth.
Look, David from the Higher School of Economics doesn't really actually believe in that.
Well, look, here's how we see it. We can't promise or guarantee any profits. First of all, we don't deceive anyone, and we won't say, yes, this will grow. But the eternal question, is it really possible? Yes, it is possible. Are there examples where this has happened? Yes, and there are a huge number of them.
And he himself was sitting and recently compiling an analysis specifically on transportation logistics markets, and he was like, no, even if it happens, it's some 0.0001% of that, or 0.001% of that. In the end, they calculated, in short, it can be X 1000.
Yes, and this is 10-15 years. Even a person asks, that is when we are already talking about, well, actually 1,000.
Since it's probably 15, it's still not 10, although, again, this all follows the classic approach. It is considered that now a modern company has emerged, and in 3 years it has skyrocketed. The pace is completely different now. Because of the emergence of this mass information system, this internet, hype is created very quickly, some said.
Listen, I just don't remember the exact figures, but 1,000 times seems a lot until you find out how many times those well-known companies like Google and Apple have grown. They didn't grow 1,000 times. They grew tens and hundreds of thousands of times from the first rounds of attracting investments.
David screams sits, no.
This is an answer to question of whether it is real.
The laws of physics do not prohibit this.
There are prospects for this. It is possible. It is real. How it will turn out depends on all of us who are involved in the project, including the investors. How quickly investments will come in, how quickly the project will be implemented. At the same time, I reason for myself in such investments, which are still high risk in one way or another. You understand? If you are trying to earn X 1000, saying this is a conservative investment in real estate would be incorrect. You see, even if this is true halfway, or even if it is true by 10%, it is still a very good profit. So if we aim for X 1000 and we end up at X 100, well, that's still quite good. Bitcoin is currently how much? It just broke through again on the hype, right? They say that if a well-known president who just won the elections in the USA does everything, as he promises and starts buying strategic reserves, Bitcoin is already predicted to reach $5 million. Does this mean we should rush to invest all our money in Bitcoin? Of course not. Does it mean that one can invest $100, $200 in Bitcoin? Of course one can. This is just an example. A normal investor always looks for opportunities to invest an accessible amount of funds for themselves. Yes, of course, that's why a sensible approach is needed everywhere. Well, I believe more than ever that this company will achieve both X100 and X1000. So, I think, or rather I would say, will it achieve X1000? The question is not whether it will, but when it will. Will you wait for it? And will you be the weak hand that sells faster?
We'll throw off about approximately X10 class, well, dividend shares. Why throw off in the first place? Well, you know.
How would people, when Bitcoin cost $1,000 there, why did they dump the slopes? Not a dividend story. Well, anyway, purely culturally, I agree. Yes, here dividends, let's say so, do it as a higher quality asset. Well, friends, let's finish today. My husband. There were a lot of questions on the air for more than 2 hours, and it's not always interesting. Yes, to read the questions. These are precisely the technically complex ones. I think such interesting people are watching us, right?
Not at all bystanders, but people who are truly passionate about technology, who know a lot about airships. That's why it's always great to have such an audience.
I'm curious how I lived until the age of 31 without knowing the word refrigerator.
Well, by the way, I thought about it when you mentioned it exactly. It was like it was in my subconscious. But as you can see, webinars also make us better, 100%. Thanks, friends. Please like, share, and send the link to this broadcast to your friends. We had an interesting presentation today, diving into many details and nuances where we didn't really talk about it before, so there will be a recording available at the same link. So send it to a friend, he will watch it tomorrow.
Regarding the webinars on Thursday, I plan to cancel it. We have a big event on Saturday, crazy preparation on Friday, and rehearsals on Thursday, so we will likely skip this Thursday. Watch the event online if you are watching online on Saturday.
Yes, I hadn't thought about it, but it makes perfect sense as there's a conference on Saturday. We will be talking about airships at our conference, and you will be able to watch the live broadcast in Russian. There will be a summary of all the news from the last 3 months, so I think it's a great reason to watch the live stream. Thank you all very much. We'll see each other again. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye, everyone.